The story starts in a magnificent temple. A small child is sitting on a throne, and she appears dreamy. She has just opened her eyes and found herself in this white space. This girl is our protagonist, and she realizes that this place was a temple. She remembers this place, and then she realizes that she has died again. This was her second death, and she had returned to this place again. In front of our protagonist, a man with a long beard stands, and he is happy to see her. As the girl looks at her tiny body, she wonders why she is a baby now. This was not the case when she died the last time. But then the bearded old man asks the girl if she is settled now. He tells her that she is a candidate for regression, and for that, everyone had to return to their original form. He tells the girl that she has already lived twice as he points at the 2 stars on her dress. But then he is concerned that they were black stars, which meant our protagonist had suffered 2 unfortunate deaths. Now the protagonist introduces herself. Her name is Shushu, and somehow she has lived twice. And she was not always part of a fantasy world. In her first life, she lived on Earth. And she was a decent gaming streamer. She did not reveal her face, but was popular only with her voice. It was a good life, and she was also earning good money. But one day, she died of a heart attack. And that was something she still does not understand. And when she opened her eyes after the heart attack, she found herself in another world. This time she was born as the second princess of a country called the Zenta Empire. Her mother was a great warrior who died when she was young, and her father was a sick and feeble man, but he loved her very much. And she also had a really cute and loving older sister, Latia. At first, Shushu was happy to be able to live a life like this, but it soon turned into a nightmare. Her pretty older sister died at the age of 3 because of an illness. Shortly after that, a revolt broke out, and her ill father also died. And taking advantage of that, her uncle usurped the throne. Shushu remembers that he was one of the most evil people she ever knew. He locked her in a cold room and hired a strict teacher who hit her a lot. And in this life of torture, Shushu was alive only because of her nanny, who truly cared for her. Then, when she was only 16 years old, her uncle died of an illness. And against her wishes, Shushu was forced to be the empress by those who actually controlled the country. And she lived the rest of her life as their puppet, even dying as one. The old man is carrying Shushu right now, and she can only think of how she died at the hands of the rebels, just like her father. And now that she opened her eyes, she was in a strange place. The girl is getting impatient, and the old man tells her that they will arrive soon. And then he takes her through a corridor to an open space. A veiled woman is sitting on a throne, and in front of her are some infants. The old man places Shushu with them, and she finds that all 4 children are about the same age as her. The woman on the throne is a god, and she says that everyone has finally arrived. She says that they were all candidates for regression, and she wanted to give them something special if they could prove their innocence to her. She would rank the children on the basis of their innocence. The most innocent child would get the best family, the second one would get the second best family, and the third one would get a family with a bad environment. And the remaining 2 will not get the chance to regress. Shushu is shocked as she hears these words, and she starts to cry. The goddess asks her why she was crying suddenly, and Shushu tells her through her tears that if she returns to a strange family, her life would be too hard. Shushu remembers all the suffering she endured because she was born into a family that soon turned into a terrible one. She was barely able to live surrounded by evil people, and then she was sentenced to death by the rebels. But right now, the other children are also influenced by Shushu's crying, and they join her. Everyone starts crying, and they say that they don't want to go. The goddess thinks that it was over sooner than she had anticipated. Then she suddenly tells Shushu that if she wants, the other children can stay comfortably here. She will have to be the only one who is reborn again. The goddess asks Shushu what she thinks about this offer. She was going to be sacrificed for her friends. Shushu starts thinking that the old man said that a black star meant an unfortunate death, and she was the only one with a star right now. She thinks that the other children died peacefully. She decides that since she has already lived twice, there is no harm in living one more. She was a little bothered that she was a sacrifice, but she says that she will do it. The goddess is impressed that Shushu was so determined, and she decides to give her a gift using her special abilities. The goddess uses her power, and 3 bags appear in front of Shushu. She tells Shushu to pick any 2 of them. Shushu finds a familiar smell coming from one of the bags, and she realizes that it was her favorite cotton candy cookie. This is the first bag she selects. And then she selects another bag that appears to be the more pretty one. As she opens the first bag, a golden light comes out of it, and a golden crown appears on Shushu's head. The goddess then says that she will give her a good family. And as Shushu opens the second bag, the goddess tells her to check this ability later. Small, glowing blue particles come out of the bag, and Shushu starts to float in the air. She is happy, and the goddess asks if she can smile even in an uncertain situation like this. She asks Shushu if she is a soul from another world. The other children fall asleep, and the goddess tells Shushu that she wants to see a child who has made a glorious comeback, and she wants to make that child her successor. But Shushu is also getting sleepy now, and she wonders if the goddess wants to meet her again. She fell asleep at the wrong time and could not hear the last words of the goddess. And now, Shushu finds herself reborn in another world. She feels dizzy because of being reborn and throws up. Her nanny is worried about her and asks why she vomited. But as Shushu looks at her nanny and her surroundings, she is in tears yet again. The goddess had promised to give her a good family, but that was not what Shushu could see. She thinks that she was scammed and starts to cry. She was once again born into the imperial family, where she lived her second life. The goddess laughs in the heavens as Shushu cries, but she does not notice that a system window is open over her head that says that the user, Shushu, meets the conditions. This was the place where she lived as a puppet emperor in her last life. This place was filled with bad people who tormented her. She thinks that this is far from the good family that she was promised. The nanny is trying to console her, and she tries to pacify her with a toy. And her trick works, and Shushu stops crying. But then Shushu sees her reflection in a mirror, and she is shocked. Her face was not the one she had in her last life. This was the face of her sister, Latya. Shushu looks at her pink hair and green eyes. The green eyes were the only thing that was clearly different among the sisters, and she is certain that she is in her sister's body now. And her sister was the most beautiful and lovable baby she had ever seen. Shushu wonders why she was reincarnated as her sister. The goddess had told her that she would return, and she came to the same imperial family, and she thinks that she is not going to live the exact same life as the last one. But then the maid calls her Princess Shushu, and it turns out that her name has not changed. Shushu thinks that she lived her previous life as a timid younger sister, and that was similar to her character in her first life. She was an introvert and a little timid. But now, Shushu looks at her nanny, Nini, knitting. The nanny says something to her, and Shushu struggles to give her a reply. Her lips were not moving the way she was used to, but Shushu calls the nanny by her name and asks her about her sister. Nini is confused as she hears the word sister from the princess's mouth. She thinks for a while and then tells Shushu that she has no sister. Her only sibling was Princess Latya, but she died 2 years ago because of a disease. Shushu thinks that her sister had the same name, and she died from the same disease this time too. And then she wonders why she looks like her. But then Nini realizes that she said something she should not have said in front of the princess. Shushu thinks about the time when God told her that she was a soul from another world. And maybe that is why her body survived, because it had a unique soul. And Latya, who was her younger sister this time, died from the disease yet again. Shushu gets sad as she thinks about her sister's death, and her nanny tries to comfort her. She holds her in her lap and gives her cotton candy. Shushu thinks that she was crying, and the nanny was giving her something like this. But as she eats the cotton candy, she is overwhelmed by its sweetness and forgets her sadness. She is shocked upon realizing this. Perhaps her mind has also become like that of a child as her body has regressed. Shushu starts sucking on her thumb, and Nini says, "How can someone be so adorable?" She calls Shushu her treasure, and Shushu is awestruck to see her smile. She still cannot believe that she had someone like her by her side. In her past life, Nini was the only one who kept her happy. Everyone loved her sister, but no one loved her. And Shushu has a feeling that even if she acts a bit weirder in this life, people won't hate her. And so, she decides to be brave. Shushu winks at her nanny. She was never so bold, but her sister was, and Shushu was going to impersonate her now. But her nanny is shocked upon seeing Shushu wink. She immediately asks the other maids to gather around, and they come in and ask her what was wrong. Nini puts Shushu forward and tells the maids to look at her. And as Shushu winks again, the maids find her too adorable. Shushu has also realized that people like it when she winks, and she wants to take advantage of it. She wonders if she can live like her sister in this world. Her sister had a natural ability to win everyone over, and this time, Shushu was as pretty and adorable as her, and she is confident in her ability too. As Shushu smiles, thinking this, the maids are smitten by her cuteness. But then Shushu sees something strange in the corner of her room. There is a bright blue light floating in the corner, and it says that the user Shushu satisfies the condition. Shushu asks her nanny if she can also see the light, but she cannot. Then Shushu realizes that the light was of the same color as the light from the second bag the goddess gave her. And then she sees a window that says that the chat window of Dimension streamer Shushu is open. Shushu is shocked as more details about the stream pop up. There is only one general channel currently, and now the first viewers were entering her channel. The system tells Shushu that there are 3 participants in her stream right now, and they are the 3 maids. Shushu is confused about what is going on. The window shows the maid, Rona, and her thoughts. She thinks that Shushu is so cute, and she wants her as her little sister. Shushu thinks that this window is similar to the chat window she used in her first life. And then, as she looks at the nanny, she can read her thoughts too. The nanny thinks that the princess is the most beautiful girl in the world. As the nanny hugs Shushu, she gets a message that she has gained 30 interest points. Shushu starts to sort out the things she has suddenly learned about. There were 3 people in front of her, and there were 3 people in the chat window. And she wonders if it was similar to the streaming she was familiar with. And she wonders if she would earn money for this too. Shushu asks Nini to give her more sweets, and Nini refuses, saying that it will be dinner time soon. But Shushu grabs her finger and says that she just wants to eat one more. And Shushu appears so cute as she requests that her nanny not refuse. She says that she will just give her one more piece of candy. Shushu is happy, and then she sees another message in the system window. It says that the god admires Shushu's adaptability, and her abilities as a streamer will be strengthened. She will get the concept trait. Shushu then sees the details about the trait concept, which was an SS rank trait. With God's blessing, Shushu's self as a pure child would be strengthened, and she would be loved by all. Shushu is confused by the message, and then she is shocked as she realizes something. Maybe the message meant that she was starting to act more and more like a baby. But then there is a knock on the door, and a maid comes running in. She informs Nini about an emergency. The princess had guests. We see a carriage stop outside Shushu's place, and a red-haired man comes out of it, and his clothes are stained with blood. Nini wonders who the guest at the princess's palace could be. But then the guest enters the room with his men. Shushu hides behind her nanny as she wonders why the man is here. His name was Berg Willow, and he was an important figure in the empire. He was handsome, with fire-red hair and a well-built body. And as he sees Shushu hiding behind the nanny, he expresses his dissatisfaction at being here. Shushu remembers Berg as a duke and a great warlord who ruled the northern territory of the empire, and he was also the half-brother of her deceased mother, Scarlet Willow. Thus, he was Shushu's uncle. He died while fighting the poison dragon in his last life. And if he had not died, the revolt that killed Shushu would not have happened. It all started when the poison dragon appeared in Willow's territory, and only the duke who had inherited the dragon's blood could stop it. He fought the dragon and defeated it, but in the process, he lost his life. And that was because of the injuries he sustained in his previous mission. Shushu was not very close to Berg in her previous life, but it was still sad for her when he died. And right now, Berg openly says that this is annoying. His aides tell him that the princess was listening, but the duke does not seem to care. And as he stares at Shushu, she hugs her nanny, who is as scared as her. The aide tells Berg that the emperor had ordered him to take the princess to the temple on his way to the subjugation mission, and Berg does not want to do that. But Shushu understands the situation as she hears about the subjugation. She thinks that this time it must be the subjugation of the fire dragon Kitanta. She wonders what she should do. The duke was already injured, and he continued to suffer without rest. And this time he would get injured so badly that he would lose his life on his next subjugation mission. Shushu thinks that if she remembers correctly, The Duke's fate had something to do with her uncle's, the Emperor's scheme. But she is confident that the Emperor does not know anything about the fire dragon right now. Suddenly, the trait concept is activated, and Shushu forgets about the serious things. She doesn't know anything right now, and she only wants to eat cotton candy. This was the result of the concept that made her more childlike. But Shushu immediately snaps out of it, and she does not want the trait to activate so randomly. She then remembers that the royal family must receive blessings at the temple once a year. The imperial family was said to descend from the beast of light, and it was said that they would not be blessed if even one person was left out. And this was also a curse that made the entire imperial family unhappy if they were not blessed. And this time, it was Berg's duty to take Shushu to the temple. Berg does not want to take her, but his aide says that it was not a good decision. The princess was a member of the imperial family and also his niece, and Shushu thinks that such words will not convince her uncle. He never helped her in her past lives. Even though she sent him letters asking for help, he ignored them. And Shushu thinks that he is a bad person. Then Nini tells the Duke that she has something to say to him. Shushu is concerned that Berg may hurt her nanny for this, and she thinks that she will poke his eyes if he does that. But the Duke asks Nini what she wants, and Shushu realizes that he does not get angry even if he is interrupted. This was different from her uncle, who killed servants if they dared to speak up in his presence. Nini says that since Berg was a guest of the princess and he had come all this way, she wants him to have a meal with her. Berg is indifferent to that proposal, and he says that he has no time for it. But his aide says that he has not yet eaten lunch. He whispers in Berg's ear that if he went back, the Emperor might call him again, and it was a better alternative to spend some time here. Berg thinks about this situation, and Shushu has realized that he does not get along well with the Emperor, so he agrees to have lunch with Shushu, even though he is uncomfortable with it. Shushu then tells us about the division of power in the country. There were three main factions with great power. The first was the Empire. The second was a group of nobles who symbolized each season, day and night. And the last faction was the Wizard's Tower. The Duke of Willow was the head of the northern territories and symbolized the winter beasts. He was a powerful warlord and aristocrat who made a marriage alliance with the imperial family. The Willow dukedom was fairly rich. It had mines that yielded all kinds of precious ores and minerals. There were also the byproducts they got from hunting the beasts. The dukedom was treated like an independent territory and could freely trade with other countries. But right now, the relationship between the Willow family and the imperial family is very bad. The current emperor had killed Shushu's father and upheld the throne, and her mother was the former head of the Willows. She was a capable warrior and ruler, but she gave up her dukeship to Berg, her half-brother, when she married the former emperor. But she died in a war. And after the death of her husband, the Willow and imperial family remained allies only out of necessity. The new emperor needed the help of the Duke, and the Duke could do nothing against the imperial family. The absolute authority over the land was handed down to the emperors generation after generation, and thanks to the protection of the sun, there was no one who opposed them. Now, Shushu is eating her food, and her nanny feeds her while she is playing, and after Shushu eats a few spoonfuls, the nanny hands her the spoon to eat herself. Berg's assistants are all smitten by the princess's cuteness, but he is still aloof. Shushu is also curious about why he does not show any reaction, and then her trait concept activates again. She calls Berg her uncle, and he asks what she wants. Shushu gets up from her chair as she thinks that she has to keep a good relationship with her only living relative, even though he did not help her in her previous life. This time, she wants to create a better bond between the two, and for that, she plans to give him candy. As Shushu approaches him, Berg says that she has not inherited the imperial bloodline. The emperor's children were always born with blonde hair, and that was proof that they inherited the imperial bloodline. But neither she nor her sister Latia were blonde. But even though she was not blonde, Latia was loved by all, whereas Shushu was not. And Shushu always wished that there were more people who loved her as much as her nanny did. Shushu asks Berg if he hates her, and he replies that he neither hates nor likes her. Shushu thinks that he was not interested in her, but he was still better than her paternal uncle who treated her badly. She asks Berg to hug her, and he asks her why he should do that. But Shushu is insistent. and this reckless and straightforward attitude reminds Berg of his late sister. He asks his aide Grant to pick Shushu up and hug her, and as he picks her up, Shushu finds that another person has entered her channel. Grant thinks that the princess was really cute, and she reminds him of his daughter. And following this, Shushu gets 25 interest points. She realizes that Grant was the name of the knight holding her, and the Duke was the only person who was not in the chat window. He was the only one not interested in her. Shushu is upset after learning this, and she starts to cry. Everyone is shocked upon hearing her cries, and she demands her uncle hold her. Grant hands her over to Berg, and he does not know what to do in this situation. But Shushu hugs him and says that she wants to stay with her uncle. Then Shushu realizes that if the Duke does not take her to the temple, she will have to go with the Emperor's knights. And they were all evil, and Shushu wants to avoid them at all costs. She would prefer to go with someone less bad, and that was Berg. Berg looks at Shushu and says that it does not seem that she inherited the Willow bloodline either. Grant agrees with him, and Berg says that there was no reason for him to take the girl in that case. Shushu is shocked and wonders why her uncle can't help her just once. In his previous life, he was fatally wounded during his current subjugation mission. Then he died a pitiful death while fighting the poison dragon. Shushu thinks that this country is already on the verge of ruin, and someone like Berg was required to keep it safe and stable. And for that, Shushu needs to win over him. She says that she wants to go out. Her nanny had told her that there were a lot of delicious candies outside. The Duke asks her what she was saying all of a sudden, but the next thing she says blows his mind. Shushu says that she wants to see Kitanta and go with her uncle. Berg is shocked as he hears those words, and he asks Shushu to repeat what she just said. No one knew about subjugating Kitanta other than his close circle, and even the Emperor did not know that he was planning to fight the dragon. And in that case, there is only one way Shushu could have known it. That was if she had inherited Willow's secret. Berg lifts Shushu up and says that maybe she was a prophet, and as he does that, the system window shows that he has entered the general channel. Shushu is also surprised when she sees her uncle's name on the general channel, but she has no idea what a prophet is. She thinks that it was some high-ranking official in the imperial court. But then Berg says that there is no way Shushu could be a prophet. He asks Grant that who knows about Kitanta, and Grant replies that only they know about it right now. The Duke pulls Shushu close to him and begins staring at her. She is scared and starts crying. As the nanny approaches the Duke, he says that the girl was lighter than a kitten, and his youngest son was heavier than her. Grant exclaims that it was quite natural. Berg did not hug his son until he was 8 years old. Then the candy in Shushu's hand drops, and she starts crying over that. But Berg picks it up and gives it back to her as he tells her not to play with food. Shushu is quite surprised by his gesture and wonders if he had a change of heart. Then Berg asks her that where did she hear the name Kitanta? Shushu suddenly remembers that the subjugation of the fire dragon Kitanta caused some serious issues among various countries in her past life. It was done in secret, and she was also a part of that secret later on when she was a puppet emperor. She also learned that her uncle had used a cruel scheme to sabotage the mission earlier, and that was the reason why the Duke got badly injured. As Berg asks Shushu about Kitanta again, she only says unrelated things. She just wants him to take her with him and make sure that he is not injured this time. Berg then asks another knight called Hetan how often Shushu meets the Emperor. Hetan replies that it was a monthly affair. She asks Berg if he thinks that the Emperor knows of their plans, and he is sure that their plan was leaked. The mission was a top-secret one, and since it had been leaked, it meant that there were traitors amongst them. That is what the knights think, and Berg asks them to give any other explanation as to why the 3-year-old princess would know the name of the fire dragon. He says that people tend to have a loose tongue in front of children. Berg wonders who was the traitor in his party, and he plans to punish them severely. But even though Shushu knew it because she knew it from her past, it was a good thing that Berg was more conscious now. Hetan says that she will try to find out everything she can as soon as possible. But Berg is still wondering if Shushu really learned about Kitanta from the Emperor. And if that was the case, could she remember more from their conversation? He suddenly decides to take Shushu with him to the temple and orders Grant to make arrangements. He also orders Nini to prepare Shushu's luggage and follow him. Nini is worried, but Berg says that he will take Shushu with him first. Shushu is shocked, and she does not want to be separated from her nanny. But as soon as Berg gives her a few candies, Shushu starts to drool. She wonders where he got those candies from. And it turns out that the candies are good enough to convince her to go ahead with her uncle. She accepts the candies with mixed emotions as she cannot resist them. Berg declares that from this moment on, the Willow family will protect the princess on her journey to the temple. He then tells Nini that he will wait for her for 2 hours, and she accepts his orders. Shushu then sees that her uncle is the only one in the chat window right now. And even then, he is not interested in Shushu. He thinks that she is weak and light, and he has other things to do rather than babysit her. And Shushu thinks that he is an abnormal person. 5 days later, Shushu is on a mountainside with her uncle's convoy. They left immediately after the preparations were complete, and Shushu did not see her uncle for the 5 days they were traveling. But that did not mean that she was lonely or bored. She had everyone's attention, and they brought delicious snacks for her. Everyone was quite eager to get her to try the snacks, and Shushu enjoyed all of them. And seeing her happy, the knights of the convoy were enchanted by her cuteness. They could only barely keep their senses after seeing her. Shushu thinks that only her uncle was indifferent to her charm. Everyone else in his party said that she was too cute and charming. And right now, Shushu has 17 members in her general channel. They are all overwhelmed by her cuteness, and Shushu can read their thoughts as well. She receives many points of interest thanks to the knights. Shushu thinks that this chat window is quite different from the one she is familiar with. There was no way for her to earn money from this, and more than that, she could read the thoughts of the people who looked at her. Shushu does not know what this system was, but she is happy that a lot of people like her, and she has the means to know their true thoughts. But then, someone approaches Shushu, and he tells everyone to get out of his way. He looks like a wizard, and he stops right in front of the princess. Meanwhile, something else is happening in the imperial palace. A knight is on the ground, and he is bleeding, and the emperor is standing in front of him. He tells the knight that he found out that the princess was missing quite late. He curses him and even stomps on his head. The emperor had found that Berg took the princess, and he suspects that he was not just taking her to the temple. Then the emperor commands the knight to capture the duke and his entourage, and he looks really terrifying as he does so. And on the other hand, Shushu and her nanny are startled by the wizard who is standing in front of them. Do you think that the wizard is an ally or an enemy? Will the emperor succeed in getting Shushu back, or will Berg take her with him to safety? And the most important question is, what is the secret behind the streaming system? Let us see in the next video if we can find any answers. Till then, if you liked this video, leave a like and a comment, and also subscribe to our channel for more such videos.